There are over 7 billion people in the world, and with the majority of Earth being water, it's hard to imagine any place that's inaccessible to humans. In reality, however, there are hundreds of places around the globe that are totally remote. Although people may live in these areas outside looking in, it's nearly impossible to live an ordinary life. From volcanic islands to underground communities, here are some of the most remote places in the world. Coober Pedy, originally known as the Stewart Range Opal Field, it is a small remote town in the South Australian outback. And because of the large quantities of opals mined there, the town is sometimes called the opal capital of the world. This is because about 150 million years ago, an ocean covered this remote desert region of Australia. Over time, the ever-changing tide carried minerals from the sandstone seabed deep into the cracks of the earth. The only remnants of the long-gone ancient ocean are the opals left deep in the rocky crevices. But Coober Pedy is also known for its unusual underground residences. In fact, most of the people here live in what is called dugouts, in which they've tunneled into the ground to escape the excruciating desert heat that can sometimes reach temperatures as high as 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That's toasty. But there is also very little rain, and that sometimes creates Mad Max-like dust storms. Luckily, the residents living underground escape much of that surface heat, where it's only 74 degrees below. And even though this is an underground city, it is well prepared for visitors. As a tourist, you can visit art galleries, jewelry shops with the town's famous opals, and a working mine where you can dig for your very own gemstones. And because it's far too hot during the day, there's a golf course complete with glow-in-the-dark golf balls and warning signs that say, "Keep off the grass," which isn't too hard since there isn't any in Coober Pedy. Heading from the extreme heat, we now make our way into the extreme cold. Ittoqqortoormiit is a settlement situated in East Greenland that is so remote that it can be called the remotest inhabited place in the Western Hemisphere. In fact, this settlement had a population of just 450 people in 2016. The name Ittoqqortoormiit means big house dwellers, and the remote place is still used by hunters for seal, polar bear, and during the springtime, the narwhal. It sits at the edge of the Northeast Greenland National Park, which is called the world's greatest wilderness and is close to Scoresby Sound, which, incidentally, is the world's longest fjord. It is such a remote place that just 10 to 15 ships travel to the port each season. Until just over 120 years ago, the inhabitants of this place lived completely isolated from the rest of the world. Not only is this place the most remote, but it's very cold here. The tundra climate has bitterly cold winters and chilly summers with no monthly average ever coming close to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. In fact, the warmest monthly average is only 37 degrees Fahrenheit, and an average annual temperature of 17 degrees Fahrenheit makes Ittoqqortoormiit one of the coldest permanently inhabited locations on Earth. It sounds like a really cold remote place, but there is another remote place even colder. Venturing into Siberia, Oymyakon is a rural community which is located in Oymyakonsky district in the Sakha Republic, Russia. Not only is it in the middle of the frozen wasteland of nowhere, but it also holds the record for one of the coldest permanently inhabited settlements on Earth. Temperatures here are always extremely cold, and children are not allowed to go to school unless it's at least negative 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Along with that cold are the regular snowstorms due to the extreme subarctic climate. Interestingly enough, this place is also known as the Northern Pole of Cold. In the town square, you can find a monument that commemorates a temperature reading of negative 96.2 degrees Fahrenheit, the coldest officially recorded temperature in the entire Northern Hemisphere. Only Antarctica has recorded lower temperatures. Oymyakon has been featured in many television series, including weather documentaries, Most Dangerous Roads, a television series called Going to Extremes, and many other television shows. The interesting thing is that even though the winters are long, cold, and bitter, the summers can be warm, or even hot with temperatures reaching into 55+ degrees Fahrenheit. Speaking of cold, remote places in the middle of nowhere, the Kerguelen Islands are in the Antarctic and are among the most isolated places on Earth. Also known as the Desolation Islands, they are an archipelago made up of a chain of 300 small islands, islets, and reefs. The islands have numerous valleys and ridges. The highest point, the glaciated Mount Ross, reaches a height of nearly 6,100 feet. Because of the harsh weather, this remote location isn't considered to be a spot for tourism. For over 300 days out of the year, there is either rain, sleet, or snow. There are no indigenous inhabitants, but France has been able to station 45 to 100 scientists, researchers, and engineers on the islands year-round. The only way to reach the islands is by boat because there are no airports, with the main island being Grande Terre, and it's only 93 miles wide. Some facilities include scientific research buildings, a satellite tracking station, dormitories, a hospital, a library, a gymnasium, a pub, and the chapel of Notre-Dame-des-Vents. But there are many islands that are very far from civilization. Tristan da Cunha is a group of volcanic islands that is considered the most remote volcanic archipelago in the world. The islands consist of the wildlife reserves Go Island, Inaccessible Island, and the Nightingale Islands, which are smaller with no inhabitants. There is no airstrip on the main island, meaning that the only way of traveling in and out of the isolated area is by boat. To reach the island, it's a 6-day trip from South Africa. A recent census set the population at only 250 residents. Because of the decline in ships going to the island for resupply, the exact population is never consistent. Today, the island has modern comforts such as a hospital, dentist office, and a grocery store. For the residents of the islands, life is peaceful. The only fear they have is the active volcano that towers above, which threatens to destroy the island at any moment. Moving on to more remote islands, we make our way to the Pacific. Palmerston Island is a set of land in the Cook Islands in the Pacific Ocean and is described as a sandy islet on a ring of coral reef that encloses a lagoon. The beautiful atmosphere has a tropical climate but is exposed to severe tropical cyclones. The island has no airports or airstrips, so the only way to reach this place is by boat, just like many other remote areas. There are several small passages surrounding the reef, so there is no safe entry for large commercial ships. If someone wanted to get to the island, it takes a 9-day journey. Palmerston only has 62 inhabitants. It has very few modern amenities, but it does have the basics: housing, electricity, the internet, and cell service. Although the island is gorgeous, the fact that it is so remote continues to be a problem for local residents. Sometimes people must travel for medical procedures or leisure, and it could take nearly 6 months for another boat to return to the island. From the islands to the mountains, we make our way to La Rinconada, which is the highest permanent settlement in the world and is located in the Peruvian Andes, 3.2 miles above sea level. There are no scheduled bus routes that lead into the city, so most visitors must ascend the large mountain to reach the remote town. This is a long and tedious adventure because visitors are susceptible to the crippling effects of altitude sickness, which include headaches, nausea, or shortness of breath. It's highly recommended that the climbers ascend slowly and rest very often for their bodies to adjust to the extreme changes in altitude. There is a tiny town at the end of the journey, but it lacks many of the modern amenities. There's no running water, no paved roads, and nearly no electricity. The population only recently grew so quickly because the town sits on top of a gold mine. Although the town may not offer much, visitors are also able to explore the Mara Salt Flats, the Sacred Valley, the floating Uros Islands, and the most famous, the ruins at Machu Picchu. Socotra is an archipelago that is between the Guardafui Channel and the Arabian Sea. The scattered land consists of 4 islands that are officially a part of Yemen. These 4 islands include Socotra and 3 smaller islands of Abd al-Kuri, Sama, and Darsa. The remote areas also consist of 3 different terrains: the narrow coastal plains, a limestone plateau, and the Hajir Mountains. The archipelago is considered the jewel of biodiversity in the Arabian Sea. It is said to have some of the most bizarre, alien-like specimens in the world. In fact, researchers counted 700 endemic species found nowhere else on Earth but here. For visitors, Socotra can be accessed via plane or boat since they built their first airport in 1999. Iquitos is the capital city of Peru's Minas province and Loreto region. making it the largest metropolis in the Peruvian Amazon. The city can be reached by airplane or boat. Although there are multiple paths, the main route into the city by boat is to take the Amazon River from the Atlantic Ocean. Iquitos has tropical climates that range from 86 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The Peruvian secluded area, like any other modern metropolitan area, has all the amenities from power to the internet and running water. With nearly 500,000 residents, Iquitos is the largest city in the world that cannot be reached by road. Although it is heavily populated, the fact that it's hard to get there makes it its own unique remote area. McMurdo Station is a United States Antarctic research station on the southern tip of Ross Island. The station serves as one of 3 United States Antarctic science facilities and inhabits around 1,200 individuals. The residents are normally flown in with the things they need. During the summer, there are 24 hours of daylight. The population is made up of researchers who mostly work on collecting data. When they are not working, the islands do have a bar, a coffee shop, and, surprisingly, a movie theater. They even had a bowling alley, but it was closed in 2009. As for the environment, the weather is very unpredictable and can change at any second. This remote location is for research purposes, and no tourist seems to visit the location. Extreme measures are taken for researchers to be able to travel to the McMurdo Station, including extensive survival training. That concludes our list of the 10 most remote places. Tell us which remote location you thought was the most interesting. And if you liked the video, subscribe and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video arrives. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.